Hi everyone, and welcome to the 8th episode of Season 2 of the A Bit of AI show. This show, we talk with Buck about his life in AI. Hi everyone, my name is Henk and I'm a white male with brown hair, wearing glasses, and today I'm wearing a gray and black shirt with the words, the other side, expert on it. And this is one of our old relics from Ignite the tour, when we were still traveling the world.
I know, very good t-shirt. That is a blast from the past. You know how I feel about the word expert though, Hank. Never always a fan of it, but we can talk more about that. And hi everyone, my name's Amy Boyd. I am a female with blonde, wavy hair, and today I'm wearing a black t-shirt and it's got lots of colourful spots on it. So yeah.
So once again, everyone, welcome to the A Bit of AI show. And this show is all about the story from the people behind the AI systems. Because in our job, Amy and me met so many people from around the world, and we learned that there are so many different skills needed to create one of these AI solutions. From pre-sales to consultancy to creating the deep neural networks itself and running them in production. So in this show, we talk with people from all over the world that are professionals in the AI and data space to have a chat and just talk about what they actually do during their week. So this is the 8th episode, and we couldn't be more excited to start talking to our guests and learn more about what they do. As always, all the links and all the information can be found on our website, abitofai.show.
Wonderful, and you know me, always on the logistics. So after the show, if you are new to our show, we have something called the A Bit of AI Cafe. Cafe experience is anyone who's watching can come and chat with myself and Henk, and what we'll do is we'll share resources, we'll talk more about the things we've spoken about on the show, and feel free to ask us your questions. So if you want to join us, it's straight after this show, and go to ak.ms/abitofai-cafe. Or if you're on our website, you can actually just click a button that says cafe on it at the top of the screen.
So perfect. Let's get started and invite Buck to the screen.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Buck. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm a principal data scientist here at Microsoft. I'm an older gentleman wearing glasses and a white Windows Azure shirt, not Microsoft Azure. I was on an early version of the team that created Windows Azure at the time and have been here at Microsoft for about 16 years. And I'm coming to you from my offices here in Tampa, Florida.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Why did I not get the memo about like the retro t-shirts? I mean, I feel like I should have been wearing one. We should have spoke. Next time we need to coordinate.
Yeah, Hank and I had a quick chat about it and we just didn't feel like we wanted to loop you in on it.
I know, it was probably when I was putting like my 1,000 lights up to make this happen, but there we go. It's all good, it's all good. But thank you, Buck, so much for joining us and to hear a little bit about, number one, you've been all over the tech industry, so we're really excited to speak to you anyway, just about your perspective, but also the amazing stuff you're doing, I nearly said Windows Azure, in Microsoft Azure at the moment in the data space as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what are you working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm working the Azure data team, and when we first started the projects there to have artificial intelligence at Microsoft, a lot of it, we've always had it in Microsoft Research, but a lot of it came through the SQL Server product where we put the R system from Revolution Analytics that we had purchased. I had been on the SQL Server team when I first joined Microsoft. And so when we brought that in, they asked me if I'd join the team and work with those folks. And we began that process of embedding machine learning into SQL Server. Now, of course, it's spread out now, and SQL Server is now under the umbrella of Azure Data, which includes not only SQL Server, but Synapse and Purview and all kinds of other products that we have. And of course, we work quite well with machine learning in multiple ways, everything from Spark to Azure machine learning.
Yeah. Oh, no, wonderful. Interestingly, Spark, Python, R, all these things get brought up on this show every single week. So it's fascinating to see, again, someone who sits behind with the team that builds the product and is able to kind of, tell us about how it works here at Microsoft around it as well, which is cool.
Absolutely.
But one of the things about this show is we want to kind of almost debunk a few myths where it's like everyone does the same thing every day, or there's only one job in the space of AI. And so we kind of ask, I know this is super hard because, I mean, your day even today hasn't started probably its average day. Then again, you do a lot of filming, so thank you for joining us. But also, all jobs in the industry are different daily. Can you describe or break down, what does your job look like? Are you coding a lot? Are you on email a lot? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, I actually do a session called A Day in the Life of the Data Scientist, and it starts off with there is no such thing. And basically what I do is I divide the clock up into the different tasks that a data science person might do. Now, data science is a big term as well and has gotten bigger and then smaller and then bigger again as time has gone on. But in general, I do something very similar to what other data scientists do. We start out by trying to define a problem we wish to solve or a question we want to answer, which is a little different than, say, a business intelligence, where I provide you a set of queries and you can come up with whatever questions you want, and then you can access that data. In data science, it's slightly different because one algorithm usually equals one prediction. I can't use a regression algorithm to do a clustering and so on. And so the first thing I have to do is define the question, and then I need to locate, verify, vet, and so on all of my data sources. Then I need to figure out how I'm going to clean them, which is 99.99% of a data scientist's job. And then after you clean everything up, you actually pick an algorithm, which is the easiest part, to work on that data. And then you compile a machine learning algorithm into an experiment. You run a few experiments, you get your stuff, and then out the other end, you get a prediction or score. And then I work with developers, and I've done the development side as well, but I work with developers to create an application that will actually use that prediction in a way. In addition to that kind of thing, I'm also a manager here at Microsoft, so I have those kinds of tasks. I'm also on the product group, so I'll sit in lots and lots and lots of meetings where we plan what we need to be working on and when things release and how things release and personnel things, who needs to do what, and so on. And then I also teach, lecture quite a bit, and develop courseware, things like that. And then, yes, I do a lot of public speaking as well. From time to time, I sleep. This is actually a tattoo. It's not a shirt. That way it saves me the time to get dressed. So I can just shower off and start the next day. And you just drink lots and lots of coffee.
I love that efficiency. That's always the key, isn't it, to these busy roles? Gosh, yeah. So that is quite a vast array of different techniques you have there. So from managing people and all the skills that come with that, to being deeply technical, to teaching. So thank you so much for coming on our show. But also, a lot of our guests work with the community just like you do, and obviously we always just want to say, like, thank you for doing that, because actually that giving back element allows everyone to learn as well. How do you find that? How do you find sort of the teaching side of it? I've seen you teach. In fact, you taught me very early on when I was at Microsoft, which was amazing. And I learned a lot from the way you kind of like workshopped and worked with people. Are you still doing some stuff like that today?
Absolutely, both in Microsoft and then privately, working for, I taught at the University of Washington for a while. And I also teach at high schools, volunteer at high schools and things. I have a data literacy course that I teach that brings students up through, I would say, the basics of data science, learning how to vet data properly and make sure that people employ critical thinking when they hear information and learning to deal with information in that way. I'll send you a link on that. Maybe we can post that on the show of the data literacy course. It's on GitHub. It's made not only for me to teach, but I would love for anyone to teach it anywhere they can. And it's suitable for teenagers. And I even made it simple enough to where a C-level, a CEO or a CTO could understand it if you slow down.
Nice one. I'm so glad you thought of that CXO level. That's that they will be very much helpful.
So, Buck, you've been doing this work for a long time, I think. So I'm wondering, how did you get into AI?
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up very poor. Didn't have a lot of money in my family, really poor. And I lived on the Space Coast here in Florida during the space race years. And there was this interesting show that came out during the late 60s called Star Trek. And I became fascinated with this show. I would watch it on our little black and white TV every night, just stunned. And there was a character on there, Mr. Spock, who was the science officer. And they actually dealt quite a bit with thinking machines, which, believe it or not, those concepts go all the way back to the 50s and even before that, where people were thinking about, okay, there's these things called computers. I bet they're like a brain. And of course, these things went through stops and starts, right? And so I began to work with technology as much as I could, wherever I could find it. Not nearly the programs, obviously, that they have today, especially for kids that are disadvantaged. But I made copious use of our public library and other places, joined the military and worked with technology quite a bit there, lived in the UK for a few years at that time, and got into computing. It was kind of breaking really big time in the 1980s there in the UK. So I got heavily involved in that. And then when I got out, before that, I started playing with things. Now it's called, which is kind of insulting, good old-fashioned AI. So in college, I learned statistics, fairly deep statistics, because that's what you did, right? That's how you made your predictions and so on, and modeling, we called it then. So you were called a researcher. There wasn't a title of a data scientist. It was a researcher. And then as time went on, I got into data mining. And a lot of folks are not aware that data mining and business intelligence are actually two separate things. And then there was this idea of what they now call good old-fashioned AI, fuzzy logic, and a few other constructs, which were, we like to say now, were really just a series of if-then-else statements. And it wasn't far from the truth. Languages I played with were things like Prolog, which does really well on things like text analysis, believe it or not. In fact, IBM's Watson uses Prolog to this day on Red Hat. It's still in use. But at any rate, I sort of say that good old-fashioned AI and statistics and then data mining got together in a wild party, and they had a baby, and it was called the machine learning era that we deal with now. Because you have some of those same constructs from each of those disciplines that are now available, but we have a couple of different things. The two different things we have now are large sets of data. And the other thing we have available we didn't have before are the ability to distribute the processing in a new way. Hadoop, obviously, this is the beginning of that. Now we see Spark and other things come into play. So I worked in these things as I came up. And I always tell people, I do quite a bit of mentoring, and I tell people in an immature industry, generalize your knowledge. And in a mature industry, specialize your knowledge, meaning know a little about a lot or know a lot about a little, one of the two, but it depends on how mature your industry is. In the early days of computing, you built your computer. I remember building mine, soldering things on, and literally creating my own computer. I had to write an operating system, used assembly to do that, and then write your own applications and so on, and then record those onto tape is the way we did it back in the early days, reel-to-reel tape. So at any rate, you did everything. You did electronics, you did coding, you did whatever you needed to do. Obviously, that's not the way it works anymore, right? There are people that do nothing but hard drive controllers or, SSD drive controllers. and so on. And there are people who write only one part of the stack. And data science was like that. When it first came out, you sort of had the data scientist. She was sitting back in her office. She had a big, gigantic system, and she ran R with a lot of memory. And you would take her a bunch of data, and you'd say, I want to know this thing. And she would say, go away. And then a week later, she would come out and with 2 tablets, from the mountain, thus saith the data. And then you would do that from the Oracle, and you'd move on. And now, of course, that's changed, right? We have data engineers, and we have people that do UIs, and we have people that do the algorithm itself, and so on. So as these things have broken apart, I've sort of been dragged along with it. But where I started was more of the end-to-end. So that was my path. I think there's like 3 paths to get into data science. One is a formal degree, and I was actually on the degree program for the University of Washington, building a program to say you're a data scientist. And then the other one was you were an analyst or a researcher, somebody who had those disciplines, but you also had the coding skills that were needed. And you were brought up in an era when the distributed systems were already out. And then there's my path, which is just a little at a time for a very long time. So I like to say I'm not good at driving. I just know where the potholes are. So I tend to stay away from some of the things, the old mistakes that we used to make. So that's kind of my path. That's how I got here. And I think everybody's path is valid and different. You do not need a degree to be in this field at all. There are things that can be done right now, regardless of your background, meaning if you're a database administrator or perhaps a BI developer or perhaps a software developer, there are places for you to get in. There is enough data cleansing that I think we could employ the world.
I was going to say, we briefly skipped over the 99.9% of your job is data cleansing. I'm assuming, that is still the case in some senses.
Still the case.
The bit that people, the bit that looks like the sparkly unicorn of AI, which is choosing the models, is, as you said, maybe not quite as much of the actual end-to-end as you would imagine. But I really appreciate you, Book, for sharing those different paths. This show is, I've said before, I would say this show is a success if someone watches it and says, I don't know, in a few years, like, oh, I watched your show and like now I'm a data scientist or now I'm a data engineer or something like that. And they've kind of got into what they're doing because we're able to share interesting resources or insights. So I very, very much appreciate that. But this has been like a very, very nice conversation, very positive conversation. But I don't know if you know Henk, but he always asks a very tricky question. So Henk,
he does. Okay. Well, let's take your best shot there, Henk.
Yeah. So, what is the most annoying thing about your role?
Other than people.
Yeah, specifically AI. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I have an amazing team around me and a great set of folks I work with. The most annoying thing in AI is one of 2 extremes. People believe that it's all hype and doesn't do anything, that it's all fake and it's not real, and just dismiss that. And the other end where it can do anything, and apparently, Ultron or the Avengers or whatever is real. And so I constantly either have to tell people, no, that's a thing, or I have to tell them, no, it doesn't do that, right? It's not omniscient. We don't have these things. Deep learning is to the brain, as a cell is to a body. It's not even remotely close. We use some terminology there, but it's nowhere even remotely close to what you have. So I think the number one, to answer your question, the biggest pain is going to be separating out expectations, managing expectations, because it's in every call. I had one time I went into a place and they said the CEO was talking to the team and they brought me in to talk to them. And I said, how can I help? And they said, well, we know you're a data scientist. We need to get some AI. Mm-hmm. And I said, you do? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you want like a large box of AI or maybe a grande or maybe a tall AI? I mean, what are you trying to do? and getting them to actually tell me what they heard AI. They're like, we should get some of that. And and I said, I think you need to kind of come up with what you don't know. And here's the question. I call it the probing question. And I keep asking, so what? So what? So what? And the end question, the last question is this one. What would you do differently if you knew the answer to that question? Yeah.
Oof, that's quite a cliff to leave us on in some senses. But no, I appreciate that one. That is not, a lot of people have said, I find it difficult when someone doesn't truly understand AI, but you've broken it down quite nicely to say the expectations are both, I think it does nothing, it's just if then else statements, and I think it does everything and it can solve every problem we've ever had, and we don't actually need to know what our problems are in some senses. So no, I very, very much appreciate that. Before we wrap up, how quick has this gone? I really, really appreciate, Book. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for sharing what you do. But we do have our quick fire round question, and we definitely wanted to get you to participate in this. So quick fire round is 6 questions. Me and Henk will alternate between asking the questions. And the only thing we ask is, can you answer with either one word, one phrase, or one sentence at the most? So let's keep it short. Let's keep it punchy. But also, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the most telling. So, Book, are you ready for our quickfire questions?
Let's do it. I've had a lot of coffee.
Oh, good stuff. So first question, you've briefly touched on it in one of your answers, and I was like, oh, you'll love this first question. What was your first computer?
I built it myself.
So like all the different pieces were just like all different. Wow, fabulous. There we go. So that is not an answer we've had before, I don't think.
Exactly. See if this one is also something different. What programming language was used in the last project you worked on?
Python.
Yes. That one's often not that different. What is the most useful thing you have learned in AI?
To clearly define the question.
Nice.
Perfect.
That's a great one.
What is your favorite event on the AI calendar?
Strata.
Oh, nice. We'll have to share a link to that one. That's a good one. What area of AI is on your list to skill up on next? So with all those hundreds of things that you're doing, if you had time to learn even more, what's on that list?
F#.
Interesting.
And what was the first project you built that kind of included AI?
A medical recommender system.
No way.
Okay, you can.
That's quite intense for your first one.
Do I dare tell you that it used fuzzy logic against a Microsoft Access database?
I don't know. I don't know whether we should dig any deeper, actually.
Let's leave it at that.
End on that.
Let's just say hopefully everybody that used it is still alive. Let's just say that.
Oh my goodness. Wonderful. We love to end the A Bit of AI show talking about Microsoft Access. It happens more than you would think it does, Book. Thank you, Book. Thank you so much for your time. We are going to need to wrap up the show. 30 minutes is never enough. So to all our guests, all our viewers out there, make sure to follow Book on his social handle. You can see it just below his screen here at Book Woody, and then MSFT, which stands for Microsoft. And yeah, Book, thank you so much for joining us. And we will hopefully speak to you again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you both.
Thank you. See you later. Okay, we have like a whole of 2 minutes, I think, to get our announcements out today. So just very quickly, we have had Microsoft Ignite this week. If you want to check out the AI sessions, either go to our website, find our show notes, or go to aka.ms/ignite-AI-sessions. And we've got a nice list of all of those different AI sessions going on. Also, if you want to see more from Book and also his amazing colleagues such as Anna Hoffman over in the Azure data space, you can check out the Data Exposed show. You can find a short link with loads of amazing information on like a special series they did on AI and machine learning. So it's aka.ms/SOSN, and that stands for something old, something new, which is quite exciting. There is all sorts. There's themed t-shirts, there's dad jokes, there's math, there is scripts, there is Azure machine learning in there. If that sounds like your type of thing, do go and check it out. That was aka.ms/SOSN, which is something old, something new. And with that, that's pretty much all we've got time for today. As always, we hope you've enjoyed the show. If you're new to the show or you've maybe missed a few weeks, catch all of our episodes on demand at at the abitofai.show website. And join us after in the cafe where you can speak with me and Henk, ask us lots of questions. We'll share lots of links about all the stuff that we've spoken about today. That's aka.ms/abitofai-cafe. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. And this has been the A Bit of AI show with Henk and Amy. We'll see you soon.